The Grand Hall of Vareth was the largest room Daniel Cole had ever seen. It stretched so far that he could not see the walls on either side. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top, small wisps of white that drifted between pillars of carved stone. Thousands of beings filled the space, creatures from worlds Daniel had only read about in mission briefings. He was not supposed to be here. Not really. Daniel was a communications officer, 28 years old, from a small town in Nebraska. His job was to carry equipment for the real diplomats. He fixed things when they broke. He made coffee. He stayed quiet and tried not to embarrass humanity in front of species that had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. The choosing day happened once every 300 cycles. Daniel did not fully understand what a cycle was in Earth years, but he knew it was a long time. The throne of Verath had been empty since before humanity had discovered fire. Today, the ancient scanner called the Arbiter would examine candidates from across the galaxy and determine who was worthy to compete for the crown. Daniel stood at the back of the human delegation, holding a tablet he did not need and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Ambassador Kira Voss stood at the front of their group, her gray hair pulled back tight, her face showing nothing. She had warned all of them before they came. Watch. Listen. Do not speak unless spoken to. Humanity was new to the galactic stage. They were here to observe, not participate. The first candidate approached the Arbiter. He was a Selvani prince, and Daniel had to admit he looked the part. His skin was made of something like living crystal, pale blue and shimmering under the lights. He had 4 arms, each one decorated with bands of precious metal. His eyes were solid white, and when he moved, he seemed to flow rather than walk. The Arbiter was a machine, but it did not look like any machine Daniel had ever seen. It was a pillar of light, contained within a frame of black metal. The light shifted and pulsed like it was alive. According to the briefing, the precursors had built it 12,000 years ago. The precursors were gone now, vanished into whatever place ancient godlike beings went when they were done with the universe. But their machines remained. The Selvani prince placed his hand on the scanning surface. The light pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Then it glowed green. Crown-worthy, the Arbiter announced. Its voice was neither male nor female, neither warm nor cold. It simply was. Proceed to the Hall of Trials. The prince smiled and walked away. Behind him, a Thoraxian warlord stepped forward. This one was massive, nearly 7 feet tall, covered in plates of natural bone armor. His species had conquered a dozen star systems through pure military strength. When he placed his hand on the scanner, the green light came almost instantly. Crown-worthy. Proceed. Daniel watched as candidate after candidate approached. A floating sphere of pure energy from the Mindweave Collective. Crown-worthy. A reptilian queen from the Sithax Empire, her scales gleaming like emeralds. Crown-worthy. A being made entirely of living metal, its form shifting constantly. Crown-worthy. Hours passed. Daniel's feet began to hurt. His coffee was now completely cold, and he had drunk most of it anyway just to have something to do. The human delegation was positioned near one of the main walkways, and every time a new candidate approached the Arbiter, they had to press back against the wall to let them pass. The Thoraxian warlord was returning from somewhere, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. He was not paying attention to where he was going. He was talking to one of his advisors, his voice a deep rumble that Daniel could feel in his chest. Daniel tried to step back, but there was nowhere to go. The warlord's elbow caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His coffee cup flew from his hand. He stumbled forward, arms windmilling, and crashed through the velvet rope that separated the spectators from the scanning area. He fell. His hands reached out automatically to catch himself, and his palm landed directly on the Arbiter's scanning surface. The light did not pulse. It exploded. Every lamp in the grand hall flickered and died. The Arbiter's gentle hum became a scream, a sound so high and sharp that beings across the chamber dropped to their knees. The pillar of light within the machine spun faster and faster, colors bleeding into each other until it was pure white, blinding white, painful to look at. Daniel tried to pull his hand away. He could not. Something was holding him there, some force that had wrapped around his wrist like invisible fingers. The screaming stopped. The light froze. And then the Arbiter spoke. Crown. Its voice cracked and stuttered like a broken recording. Not crown-worthy. Crown. Crown destined. The crownless king. He who rules without throne. He who leads without lineage. The machine's voice rose in pitch. Anomaly. Anomaly. Scanning parameters exceeded. Destiny threads unmapped. Bloodline markers absent. Potential indices undefined. Anomaly. Anomaly. The light died. The machine went silent. Daniel's hand finally came free, and he fell backward onto the cold stone floor. The grand hall was completely quiet. Thousands of beings stared at him. The Selvani prince's crystal face had twisted into an expression of pure fury. The Thoraxian warlord's hand had moved to the weapon at his belt. Ambassador Voss pushed through the crowd, her face pale. Lieutenant Cole. What did you do? I fell, Daniel said. His voice came out as a whisper. I just fell. The keeper emerged from behind the Arbiter. She was ancient. Her species created by the precursors themselves to maintain the machine. Her skin was like old paper. Her eyes like deep pools of black water. She had seen civilizations rise and fall. She had watched 1,000,000 candidates approach the scanner over 12,000 years. She looked at Daniel. And for the first time in centuries, she smiled. In all my years, she said softly, the Arbiter has approved many. It has rejected many. But never, not once, has it named someone crown-destined. She turned to address the stunned crowd. The prophecy of the precursors speaks of one who would come without crown, without throne, without the gifts given to other species. One who would lead not through power given, but through power earned. This is absurd, the Selvani prince snapped. This creature is nothing. His species is nothing. They are children playing at the edge of the galaxy. Perhaps, the keeper replied. But the Arbiter has spoken. And the Arbiter does not lie. Daniel sat on the cold floor, his heart pounding, his coffee-stained uniform suddenly the most important piece of clothing in the galaxy. Every alien in the room was looking at him like he was either a miracle or a threat. He had no idea which one he actually was. The holding cell was nicer than Daniel had expected. It had a bed with clean sheets, a small table, and a window that looked out over the city of Varath. The city was beautiful, all spires of glass and bridges of light connecting buildings that floated in the air. Daniel sat on the bed and stared at his hands. They looked the same as they always had. Normal human hands. Nothing special about them. 3 hours ago, he had been nobody. A technician, a coffee fetcher. Now, according to an ancient machine built by beings who had existed before most stars were born, he was something called the Crownless King. He did not feel like a king. He felt like throwing up. The door opened, and Ambassador Voss walked in. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her normally perfect posture had slumped slightly. She had been in meetings since the incident, trying to explain something that could not be explained. Tell me everything, she said. From the beginning, leave nothing out. I already told you. The Thoraxian bumped into me. I fell. My hand touched the scanner. Everything went crazy. Did you feel anything? See anything? Daniel thought about it. When his hand had touched the surface, there had been a moment, just a fraction of a second, when he had felt something vast looking at him, like standing at the edge of an ocean at night and knowing something huge was swimming just beneath the surface. But he did not know how to put that into words. It was cold, he said finally. The scanner. It was really cold. Voss sat down in the only chair. She rubbed her eyes with her palms. The High Council is meeting right now. 12 species. All of them furious. The Selvani are demanding your execution. The Thoraxians want to dissect you to figure out how you tricked the machine. The Mindweave Collective wants to scan your brain. I didn't trick anything. I know. The Keeper has confirmed that the Arbiter cannot be fooled or corrupted. Whatever happened, it was real. She paused. Daniel, Do you understand what crown destined means? Not really. In 12,000 years, the Arbiter has scanned millions of candidates. It sorts them into categories. Most are rejected entirely. The best are approved as crown-worthy, which means they can compete in the trials for the throne. But crown-destined is different. It means the machine has identified someone as the chosen ruler. Not a candidate, the ruler. The precursors built the Arbiter to find this person, and in all of history, it has never found anyone until today. Daniel stared at her. That can't be right. I'm nobody. You're a human. That's what matters. Voss leaned forward. The council is terrified. Daniel. Not because you cheated. Because you didn't. Because somehow, a species they consider primitive and unimportant produced the one being the precursors we're looking for. What does that mean for Earth? That depends on what happens next. The door opened again. This time, the keeper entered. She moved slowly, her ancient body creaking with each step, but her eyes were sharp and clear. 2 guards followed her, their weapons not quite pointed at Daniel but not quite pointed away either. The council has reached a decision, the keeper said. The Arbiter's verdict cannot be ignored. However, the crown-worthy candidates have invoked their right to challenge. Challenge? Ancient law. Any crown-worthy candidate may challenge a crown destined through the trials of ascension. If the crown destined fails even one trial, they are declared unworthy and their claim is void. Daniel felt a small spark of hope. So if I fail, this all goes away? I can go home? The keeper's expression did not change. If you fail, you will be executed, and your species will be expelled from the unified territories. Humanity will be declared unfit for galactic civilization. Your worlds will be isolated. Your ships will be destroyed if they leave your system. The hope died instantly. How many candidates have challenged him? Voss asked. 17 so far. More are expected. 17 trials? The challenger chooses the type of trial. Combat, wisdom, endurance, will. The crown destined must face each one. Daniel stood up. His legs felt weak, but he forced them to hold him. I can't fight 17 alien warriors. I can barely do 10 push-ups. Then you will die, and your species will suffer. The keeper's voice held no cruelty, only fact. That is the law. There has to be another way, some kind of appeal, something. There is not. The law exists to prevent the unworthy from claiming what they have not earned. You must prove yourself, Daniel Cole of Earth. Or you must accept the consequences. Daniel looked at Voss. She looked back at him, and he could see the fear in her eyes. Not fear for herself. Fear for Earth, for every human who would suffer because he had tripped and fallen in the wrong place. When do the trials start? He asked. Tomorrow. The Thoraxian warlord has claimed the first challenge. He has chosen combat. Of course he had. After the keeper left, Daniel sat back down on the bed. His mind was racing, trying to find some way out of this. He was not a fighter. He was not a leader. He was a guy who fixed broken equipment and made decent chili. But he thought about his family back home. His mother, who still sent him care packages even though shipping to space stations cost a fortune. His sister, who was pregnant with her first child. His friends from school, from training, from every posting he had ever had. If he quit, they would all pay the price. Ambassador, he said slowly, what exactly are the rules of these trials? What do you mean? I mean, are there rules? Things I can and cannot do? Voss frowned. I don't know. The keeper might. Then find out. Every rule, every loophole, every exception. Daniel looked at his hands again. Normal human hands. Nothing special about them, but they had fixed 1,000 broken machines. They had solved 1,000 small problems. Maybe this was just another problem to solve. I can't beat them at their own game, he said. They're stronger, smarter, older, better in every way that matters. But they've had everything given to them. They've never had to work for anything. They don't know how to improvise. And you do? Daniel smiled. It was a small smile, tired and scared, but real. "I'm from Nebraska, Ambassador. We improvise everything. That's all we've got." The arena was older than human civilization. Its stone walls had been carved when the first mammals were just beginning to walk on Earth. Millions of beings had fought here, bled here, died here. The sand on the floor was mixed with the dust of 1,000 species. Daniel stood at one end, wearing borrowed armor that did not fit properly. The chest plate was too wide. The leg guards kept slipping. He had refused a weapon, which had caused confused murmuring among the crowd. The arena was packed with spectators from every corner of the galaxy, all of them eager to watch the strange human who had broken the Arbiter. At the other end stood Warlord Grath of the Thoraxian Empire. He was massive, nearly 7 feet of muscle and bone armor. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world where everything wanted to kill them. They were built for violence. They lived for it. Grath carried a weapon that looked like a cross between an axe and a hammer. It was taller than Daniel. He swung it through the air with one hand like it weighed nothing. "Human," Grath bellowed, his voice echoing off the ancient walls. "I will make this quick. Your species does not deserve to suffer for your foolishness." "Thanks," Daniel called back. "That's really considerate." The keeper stood on a platform above the arena. She raised one withered hand, and the crowd went silent. The rules of combat are simple. The trial ends when one participant is dead, unconscious, or surrenders. There are no restrictions on weapons or tactics. The arena itself may be used. "Begin." Grath charged. Daniel ran. The crowd gasped. Some laughed. Running from a fight was not honorable. It was not what a king would do. But Daniel did not care about honor. He cared about staying alive. The arena was large, filled with obstacles that had been placed there over thousands of years. Stone pillars, pits of sand, raised platforms. Daniel used all of them, ducking behind cover, scrambling up walls, putting as much distance between himself and Grath as possible. Grath was fast for his size, but he was not built for sustained running. His species evolved for short, brutal fights. Kill the enemy quickly, or be killed. The concept of a chase was foreign to them. After 5 minutes, Grath was breathing hard. After 10, he was sweating. After 20, he had to stop and rest. Daniel kept moving. "Coward!" Grath roared. "Stand and fight!" "No thanks," Daniel shouted back from the top of a stone pillar. "I'm comfortable up here. This is not combat. This is running." The keeper said there are no restrictions on tactics. Running is a tactic. Grath screamed in rage and threw his weapon at the pillar. It struck the stone with tremendous force, cracking it down the middle. Daniel jumped to another pillar just before his collapsed. An hour passed. Then 2. Then 3. The crowd's laughter had stopped. They watched in stunned silence as the human simply refused to engage. He climbed walls. He jumped over pits. He used the environment like a toy, always staying just out of reach. Grath was getting slower. His bone armor, which usually protected him, was now weighing him down. His breathing was ragged. His movements were sluggish. "This is not how warriors fight," he gasped. "Good thing I'm not a warrior," Daniel replied. In the 6th hour, Grath collapsed. His body simply could not continue. Thoraxians were built for power, not endurance. Their hearts could pump massive amounts of blood for short periods, but they could not sustain it. Grath lay in the sand, his chest heaving, unable to move. Daniel climbed down from his pillar and walked over to him. He stood there for a moment, looking at the fallen warlord. "Do you surrender?" he asked. Grath's eyes were filled with hatred and confusion. "You did not fight." "I didn't have to." For a long moment, Grath said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I surrender." The crowd erupted, not in celebration, but in chaos. Arguments broke out in a dozen languages. This was not how trials were supposed to go. The human had won without throwing a single punch. The keeper's voice cut through the noise. "The trial of combat is complete. The crownless king is victorious. Daniel walked out of the arena on shaking legs. His whole body was trembling with exhaustion and fear. But he was alive. He had won. Ambassador Voss met him in the tunnel outside. Her face was a mixture of relief and disbelief. "That was either brilliant or insane," she said. "Probably both." The Selvani prince has claimed the next challenge. Wisdom trial. He spent his entire life studying strategy and logic. He's considered one of the greatest minds in the galaxy. Daniel leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. "When does it start?" "Tomorrow. Then I have tonight to figure out how to beat a genius." He laughed weakly. "Should be easy." They gave him a room to rest in, but he did not sleep. He spent the whole night reading about the Selvani prince and the wisdom trials. The main test was a game called Depths of Empire, a strategic simulation that took decades to master. The prince had been playing since he was a child. He had never lost. Daniel had never even heard of it until today. But as he read the rules, something occurred to him. The trial did not require him to win. It only required him to not quit. Maybe that was enough. Maybe endurance was its own kind of wisdom. The game board floated in the air between them, a three-dimensional map of stars and planets and trade routes. It was beautiful in its complexity. Thousands of pieces moving in patterns that Daniel could barely follow. The Selvani prince sat across from him, his crystal skin glowing softly in the dim light of the chamber. "You understand," the prince said, his voice smooth as water over glass, "that you cannot win this. I have studied Depths of Empire for 400 years. I have defeated the greatest minds of 100 worlds." "I understand," Daniel replied. "Then why do you continue? Surrender now. Accept your fate with dignity." "I don't think I will." The prince made his first move. Daniel watched as pieces shifted across the board. Alliances formed and broke. Economies rose and fell. He had no idea what any of it meant. He made his own move at random, pushing a piece forward simply because he had to do something. The prince took it immediately. That was a mistake. Probably. 5 minutes into the game, Daniel had lost half his pieces. 10 minutes in, he was down to a quarter. 15 minutes in, the prince had completely surrounded what remained of his forces. "Do you surrender?" the prince asked. "No." The prince frowned. "You have no path to victory. Your position is hopeless. The rules say I have to quit or lose all my pieces. I haven't done either yet." Daniel made another move. It was pointless. Suicidal even. The prince destroyed him within seconds. The game ended. "I lost," Daniel said. "Can we play again?" The chamber went silent. The keeper, who was observing from a raised platform, leaned forward with interest. "Again?" the prince repeated. "The trial isn't over until I quit. I haven't quit. I just lost one game. Let's play another." The prince's crystal face showed something Daniel had not seen before. Uncertainty. "That is not how this is typically done." End quote. "But it's not against the rules, is it?" The keeper's ancient voice drifted down from above. "It is not. The trial of wisdom tests not just knowledge but perseverance. The challenger may request additional games until they surrender, or until the opponent concedes." Daniel smiled. "Then let's play again." They played again. Daniel lost in 6 minutes. "Again," he said. They played again. Daniel lost in 8 minutes. Again. Hours passed. The prince won every single game. His victories were quick and brutal, each one exposing another gap in Daniel's understanding. But Daniel kept going. He watched. He learned. He asked questions after each game. Genuine questions about strategy and tactics. The prince answered at first out of arrogance, happy to show off his superior knowledge. But as the hours stretched on, his answers became shorter. His moves became more aggressive. He was trying to end this quickly, to crush Daniel so completely that he would have to give up. Daniel did not give up. 12 hours. 50 games. All losses. "Why do you continue?" the prince demanded. His crystal skin had dulled slightly. His species needed rest, needed to enter a regenerative state every few hours. He had been pushing himself, refusing to show weakness in front of the human. Because I'm learning, Daniel said. Every game, I last a little longer. Every game, I understand a little more. You will never beat me. Maybe not, but that's not the point. Then what is the point? Daniel leaned back in his chair. His eyes were burning with exhaustion. His body ached. But his mind was still working, still processing, still adapting. Where I come from, we have a saying. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. It means that losing doesn't matter as long as you keep trying. You've been playing this game for 400 years. You're incredible at it. I've been playing for 12 hours, and already, I can see things I couldn't see at the start. Give me another 400 years, and who knows? You don't have 400 years. No. But I have right now. And right now, I'm not quitting. They played again. Daniel lasted 11 minutes, then 15, then 20. The crowd outside the chamber had been watching through projected screens. At first, they had laughed at the humans' failures. Now, they watched in silence. Something was happening that they did not understand. The human was still losing, but somehow, he was also winning something else. In the 72nd hour, the prince fell asleep. His crystal form slumped in his chair, his eyes flickering closed. His species could not go this long without regeneration. His body had simply shut down against his will. Daniel sat across from him, still awake. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurred. Every part of him wanted to collapse, but he stayed upright. The keeper descended from her platform. She looked at the sleeping prince, then at the exhausted human. The challenger has conceded through inability to continue, she announced. The crownless king is victorious. Daniel did not celebrate. He barely had the energy to nod. They carried him back to his room, and he slept for 16 hours straight. When he woke, Ambassador Voss was sitting beside his bed. You've won 2 trials, she said. 13 more to go. How long do I have before the next one? 3 days. The next challenger is from the Mindweave Collective. They want to test your mental defenses. Daniel groaned and pulled the blanket over his head. Can I just stay here forever? Unfortunately, no. Voss paused. Daniel, what you're doing is working. The other candidates are starting to doubt themselves. They expected you to break by now. The fact that you haven't is making them nervous. Good. Daniel's voice was muffled by the blanket. They should be nervous. I'm too tired and too stubborn to quit. That's a dangerous combination. Over the next month, Daniel faced challenge after challenge, a test of pain endurance against a species that felt no pain. He screamed through every second of it, but he did not stop. A test of memory against beings with perfect recall. He failed miserably, but he refused to surrender. A test of speed against creatures that could move faster than his eyes could track. He came in last every time, but he crossed every finish line. He never won, not really. But he never quit. And slowly, the galaxy began to understand what the Arbiter had seen in him. The final trial was different from all the others. There was no arena, no game board, no physical challenge. There was only the Arbiter and a single chair in an empty room. Daniel had survived 16 trials. 16 challengers had thrown everything they had at him, and 16 times he had refused to break. His body was covered in scars. He had not slept properly in weeks, but he was still standing. The keeper led him to the room herself. Her ancient face showed something that might have been respect. The trial of will, she explained. You will connect directly with the Arbiter. It will show you the weight of ruling. Every world, every species, every life that would depend on your decisions. Most minds shatter under the burden. Most minds? All minds, actually. No candidate has ever completed this trial. They either emerge broken, or they quit before the visions destroy them. Daniel looked at the chair. It was simple, made of the same black metal as the Arbiter's frame. It did not look dangerous, but he could feel something coming from it. A pressure at the edges of his thoughts. What happens if I break? Your mind will be gone. Your body will live, but you will not be there anymore. And if I quit, then the trials are over. You will be executed. And your species will face the consequences we discussed. Daniel sat down in the chair. Daniel. The keeper's voice was soft. The Arbiter chose you for a reason. Perhaps that reason will become clear in there. Or perhaps it will kill you. Either way, I want you to know that you have earned my respect. You are not what I expected from your species. What did you expect? Weakness. Fear. Surrender. She smiled slightly. I was wrong. The connection opened. Daniel had thought he understood what the keeper meant when she talked about the weight of ruling. He had imagined numbers, statistics, abstract concepts. He was wrong. He felt them. Every single one. Trillions of lives poured into his mind. He felt their hopes, their fears, their dreams, their pain. He felt children being born on worlds he had never heard of. He felt old beings dying peacefully, and young beings dying in violence. He felt joy and sorrow and love and hatred, millions of years of history compressed into a single endless moment. It was too much. Far too much for one human brain to hold. Daniel screamed. His hands gripped the arms of the chair so hard that his knuckles turned white. Tears streamed down his face. His mind was being pulled apart, stretched across the galaxy like a rubber band about to snap. This is what it means to rule, the Arbiter's voice said in his head. This is the weight you would carry. Every decision affects all of them. Every choice creates ripples across the stars. Can you bear it? No, Daniel thought. I can't. No one can. Then quit. Release yourself from this burden. It is not yours to carry. The voice was seductive. Kind. Even. It would be so easy to let go. To fall into the darkness and let someone else take this weight. He was just a technician from Nebraska. He fixed things. He made coffee. He was not meant for this. But then he thought about his mother's face. His sister's laugh. The blue of Earth's sky on a clear summer day. All of those lives, all of those moments, were part of the weight he was feeling now. They were drops in the ocean of existence that flowed through him, and he realized something. He could not carry this weight. No one could. No king, no emperor, no god could hold the entire galaxy in their mind and not break. The precursors had been wrong to create a throne meant for one being, but maybe that was not what they wanted. Maybe the trial was not about bearing the weight. Maybe it was about understanding that no one should have to bear it alone. I can't carry this, Daniel thought. But I can help others carry it. I can share it. I can teach them that they're not alone. He let go. Not of consciousness, but of the need to control, the need to hold everything together by himself. He accepted that he was small, that he was weak, that he was just one tiny piece of an infinite universe. And in accepting that, he found peace. The visions did not stop. They kept coming, wave after wave of lives and worlds and histories. But Daniel stopped fighting them. He let them flow through him like water through a net. He did not try to hold them. He simply witnessed them. Hours passed, or days, or years. Time had no meaning in this place. When Daniel finally opened his eyes, he was still sitting in the chair. The keeper stood before him, her ancient face showing genuine shock. You're awake, she said. Your mind is intact. Yeah. His voice was hoarse, like he had been screaming for centuries. I think so. How? What did you do? Daniel thought about how to explain it. I stopped trying to be a king, he said finally. I realized that's not what the galaxy needs. You don't need someone to rule you. You need someone to remind you that you're not alone. The keeper stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a strange sound. Rusty from disuse. But genuine. The precursors searched for 12,000 years for a being worthy of absolute power. And they found one who doesn't want it. She shook her head. Perhaps that is the point. Daniel stood up slowly. His legs were weak, but they held him. I have a proposal, he said. For the council. For everyone. What kind of proposal? The throne should stay empty. But not because no one is worthy. Because no one should have that kind of power. Where I come from, we elect our leaders. We choose them together. Maybe the galaxy should try that. The keeper's eyes widened. You would give up the throne? After everything you endured to claim it? I never wanted a throne. I just wanted to protect my people. And I think the best way to do that is to make sure no one can rule over anyone else without their consent. 3 years later, the Galactic Confederation held its first election. 12 species, 12 votes. And for the first time in history, the people of the galaxy chose their own leaders. Daniel Cole did not run. He went back to Earth, back to Nebraska, back to his small town, where people knew him as the guy who fixed things. He still fixed things. Satellite dishes, mostly, though now some of those satellites orbited planets on the other side of the galaxy. But every year, on the anniversary of the choosing day, delegates from across the stars came to visit him. They brought gifts and stories and questions. They called him the Crownless King, the man who had been offered everything and chosen nothing. He always told them the same thing. I'm not a king. I'm just a guy who was too stubborn to quit. And in the grand hall of Verith, the arbiter still stood. Silent now, its purpose fulfilled. But if anyone asked what the Crownless King had meant for the future of the galaxy, the ancient machine would give the same answer it had given on that first day. Anomaly. Wonderful. Terrible anomaly. And perhaps the best thing that ever happened to us all.